the way I'm approaching this today is a bit like American Friends Of, were British Friends of Romania. And that's how we've done a lot of our fundraising over the last, we've been going, next year will be our 20th anniversary. And I'll introduce you just for a couple of minutes to the organization, just to give you the context of our fundraising, which is quite important, and then talk about fundraising. So as Tillman said, we are protecting the farmed landscapes of Transylvania by working with the farmers, because they're the only people who can manage and maintain these big areas. We work right in the middle of Romania in southeast Transylvania, just there. And this is an image of the very wildflower-rich hay meadows that are there just because of centuries of low intensity management and mosaic management. And it's this small scale ownership and mosaic management, which is very important. But it's a big scale landscape. So we're dealing with thousands of farmers. And in a way, we regard it as quite a great, almost spiritual activity. Here is Transylvania, but actually the image below is Middle Earth from Lord of the Rings. And we feel ourselves to be slightly in the world of Lord of the Rings and keeping the orcs away. It's quite a sacred task we have. And these are the main threats: ploughing, turning, loss of permanent grassland, which is a massive emitter of carbon dioxide, and also loss of biodiversity, and too many sheep. Intensive grazing is another big threat. But the threats are numerous, and I won't go through this, but many of them are economic. And so it's quite a complex fundraising picture to offer to potential donors. We're not offering a wilderness habitat. We're looking at farmed landscapes, semi-natural landscapes, and communities, and biodiversity. And we're also bringing carbon into the equation as well, of course. And so it's quite a complex thing to sell to potential donors, because it's cross-cutting. So we needed to find quite innovative funders who were willing to look at the broad picture. People, nature, not at wilderness necessarily, high biodiversity, but complex. And also, when we first started in 2004, Romania was relatively, well, I said unknown, that's the wrong word, but it wasn't, since it didn't join the EU until 2007, it was that much, donors were less certain about it. So we actually started by registering as a UK as well as a Romanian charity. And that had a number of advantages, and I'll skate through them for a few minutes and then try to draw some conclusions. First of all, there are some charities in the United Kingdom that will only give to registered UK charities. And that's partly because they're set up for it themselves, but also if you're a private donor, you get 25% gift aid. Or rather, sorry, if a private donation is boosted by 25% by the UK government, which is quite big. And then there's a small advantage to the donor as well in terms of tax. So there is an immediate 25% increase in UK donations to a UK registered organization. And when we first started 20 years ago, the British government Darwin Initiative was the big first single donation that started us going, and then we were joined by Orange Telephones. But without UK registration, we wouldn't have been eligible for this Darwin Initiative funding. Also, certainly when we started, and even now, I think, philanthropic donations are much more known and established in the UK than they are in Romania. And so we had a big advantage from being registered in the United Kingdom. And it's not only from a tax incentive point of view, but it's also from connections and credibility, and the fact that I'm based in the UK, I'm able to go to meetings, and there is a whole other pool, a much bigger pool to fish in the United Kingdom than there is in Romania. This is a quick look at our funding sources, but I won't spend long on this, but we have state funding, corporate, private funders, and we get funding from our commercial enterprises as well. But drilling down into that, these are the philanthropic donations from outside Romania. And first of all, we had, forget Orange and Darwin, that's our beginning, but first of all, Orange was in Romania, and secondly, Darwin was not philanthropic. But looking at the lower two lines there, we met in the UK an organization called Earthworm. They used to be called the Forest Trust, very interesting organization. And they put us in touch with the French Fondation Carrefour, and they helped us in our contacts with Fondation Orange, which is a French company as well. And without meeting Earthworm in London, these wouldn't have happened. And Carrefour, for example, gave us a donation of 250,000 euros to build a cheese plant to give income to farmers. And it wasn't that easy to raise funds for those kind of purposes, so that was fantastic. European Outdoor Conservation Association, you should all look out for, because they're a very useful source of relatively small funding, 25 to 30,000 euros a time, something like that. But then going to the lower line, all of these are British organizations, apart from International Land Conservation Network, which is a very nice contract we have with the United States. But apart from that, they are all British organizations. And I'm convinced that we wouldn't have got the funding without being UK registered, and also being able to maintain our contacts in the UK. Fauna and Flora International, for example, gave us a very large grant for land purchase, and Sigrid Rousing Trust are giving us core funding, which of course is the holy grail for conservation NGOs. It's core funding. And Adept UK, as a separate organization, has done several quite major fundraising activities, such as raising money to convert from these, very fine, but they're dual purpose dairy cattle, to these. We have an experimental Adept Angus farm in Romania, where we're showing how conservation grazing can make money, and also deliver conservation targets as well. And we have measured the benefits of returning grassland to cattle, haymaking and grazing, away from monotonous sheep grazing, using funds raised from Adept UK. And a new fundraising method we're developing with this organization you see at the bottom, Replanet, is carbon and biodiversity grassland credits. And I think this is, although we're not talking here about philanthropic donations, we are talking about international corporate funding of private land conservation. And we're hoping to raise funds for 25-year annual contracts for whole valleys in our area of Transylvania, using avoidance of loss credits. And this means that farmers are being paid not to plough their land and not to manage it intensively, and they're being given small bonus payments to increase the biodiversity on their land. Different metrics are used, different fauna and flora types are used to monitor regularly what's happening. And it's happening at landscape scale for 25 years. And we are able to design our own small management agreements with farmers. So it's a wonderfully flexible system. And I feel this is a very important element of future conservation. As I said, we're able to design our own management schemes, and therefore we can adapt them to local conditions. And the kinds of payments are similar or perhaps slightly larger than agri-environment payments, and we think they'll be attractive to farmers. So after that quick run through, I just will try to draw a few lessons. And one is that being registered in the UK as well as in Romania offered eligibility for funding. And then the second point is it offered credibility to funders. And one interesting thing is that we had to check with the Charity Commission because we were worried that money raised in the UK, they would disapprove of it being sent to other countries. And the reply was, we, the Charity Commission, positively encourage the use of UK registered charities to raise money on behalf of other charities with the same goals, with compatible aims, and to transfer. So instead of being concerned about this, the Charity Commission actually encourages UK charities to raise money and to pass it on to other organizations, whether in the UK or abroad, who share their goals. And networking, it's so important to be around all the time and to know people. And I'm afraid in the world of philanthropic donations, it's very much a matter of who you know, as well as what you do and what you're trying to sell to them. And finally, some people might be wondering about UK and Brexit. Well, actually, Brexit hasn't had any impact on any of the things I've been talking about, whether it's donating to Romania or raising money from the European Union. Of course, if we didn't have the Romanian charity, we wouldn't have been able to raise money for European projects, which are a very important part of our funding. But we are registered in Romania, so that's how we do that. And finally, I'll just mention this. We are lucky enough, because we got funding from Fauna and Flora International from the UK for land purchase. We're lucky enough to have a field centre, and I think to be able to show potential donors not just come and see my office and come and meet some people we work with, but to be able to take them to a field centre where you're actually carrying out research and you can show what you're doing is a very effective way of fundraising and demonstrating in practice what we're doing. And that's all, but of course I'm delighted to answer any questions.